We are Rogue Media Sports.
Drake Maye. The time is upon us. And I know some of you are watching the Cam Show live here on the Cam Show YouTube, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network, because you want to hear about Drake Maye or my large nuts. Either one. The word has been going around quite a bit about both of those things. But yes, we've talked about it for weeks, months even, and the time is now upon us. The Drake Maye era has officially begun in New England. He will take the field as the starting quarterback for the Patriots against the Houston Texans this Sunday. Zach Burke's Houston Texans, my producer's Houston Texans, on Sunday. And it's about damn time for a lot of us. Now, for those of you who followed the show, I was okay with kind of this slow rollout here. In fact, I think this is perfect timing. Like we've done the Brissett thing. 1-4. You just lost the most winnable game on your schedule on Sunday. Like, now it's time. The kid's been taking somewhere between 30 to 50% of the reps, depending on what reporter you trust the most, as a backup quarterback for the last couple of weeks and months here. He looked good in the preseason. Oh, but you only face vanilla defenses in the preseason. But it's like at some point, it's got to happen. There's only so much the kid can learn in the film room and in practice. He's going to get better, hopefully, as this goes along. In fact, I don't expect this to be a dazzling performance on Sunday because he's still playing behind the league's worst offensive line and still throwing to the league's worst receiving core. So don't expect just magic from moment one. But what it is progress. It's hope. It's something for the future for this franchise, which looks pretty damn hapless right now and has for a couple of years. So obviously the argument at the beginning to not use him was the offensive line. It is the worst offensive line in the league. Their quarterbacks get hit more than anyone in the league. And Jacoby Brissett actually did a fairly okay job at avoiding hits and keeping plays alive and not turning into complete disasters. He's not a terrific athlete at quarterback. Drake Maye is, so maybe that does change some things. He can get out of the pocket a little bit, make some plays happen, make some things happen out of nothing. He will give you a different element than Jacoby Brissett in terms of effectiveness. I think that he might give you the same kind of production as Brissett the first couple of weeks anyway. But obviously, this is your franchise quarterback for the future, hopefully for the next 10 or 12 years. And you've got to see what he's got. You know, I know there's a lot of people that said he should have started week one the same way Mac Jones did. And it seemed like before Mac Jones started, he had all the answers to the test. You know, everyone was saying how great a command he had of the playbook, of the huddle, how calm he was, and just kind of all these intangibles. Oh, he doesn't have any arm strength, and he can't move around really well, and he gets rushed pretty quickly. Like, you know, he gets happy feet, but all the other intangible stuff is great. And, oh, he practices like Brady and whatever other bullshit we heard about Mac Jones. With Drake Maye, you know that there's real talent there, real talent to the point where he was picked third overall, even with being a raw prospect at quarterback. And he's got some of that between the ears stuff. We all saw the Hard Knocks clip and how Jaden Daniels sounded and how Drake Maye sounded. Jaden Daniels looks like one of the best quarterbacks in football right now. It's time for Drake Maye to get out there as well. I did want to go over an article written today because I think for the most part, it's pretty positive about Drake Maye starting. And specifically with the fans, like, hell yes, it's about time. Let's go. But I saw this one from Boston.com, which is from the Globe, by Connor Ryan, who is a writer I actually really like and respect. He does a lot of on the Bruins beat. And so I follow his Bruins stuff a lot. And he wrote about Drake Maye and the Patriots this week. Three reasons why starting Drake Maye versus the Texans is a bad move by the Patriots. Okay, let's hear him out here. First, a brutal matchup against the Texans. It was all but inevitable the Patriots were going to turn to him at some point, but the timing here is confusing, especially with the Patriots afforded a prime opportunity to start May in week 5 against a dreadful Dolphins team. But even with the expecting growing pains that'll come with his first season, a debut against a broken Dolphins offense would at least have given New England's rookie some margin of error to work with. I understand that point. Do I agree with it? No. I said it last week. I said, all right, let's do this Jacoby Brissett thing one more time with Miami because it is the most winnable game on your schedule and because there is some veteran attributes to Jacoby Brissett and because he has led your team to a win this year. Was it kind of fluky? Absolutely. But he got you there. And so, and I say that to say, if Drake Maye did go out there against the Dolphins and it was the same result, there's no doubt Patriots fans would have been pissed and saying, well, if you had the veteran guy out there, you would have won this game. And this would have been an actually key win for you guys. You faced a bad team and you put out the most unproven commodity that you have. That would have been happening if the Patriots had lost by the same score and Drake Maye had thrown a couple picks or he didn't have an illustrious game in his debut as the starter. So I was okay with, hey, let's roll this out one more time. Let's try and just pull a fast one, get a divisional win. And it didn't work. So now you go to Drake Maye. So I personally don't agree with this part of it. I think you go with house money against the Texans. You're not supposed to beat the Texans, even though it's at home. Houston's a much better team than you are. Most teams are better than you are. Most teams in this league. So you roll in there with house money. You just say, hey, kid, let's let it rip. Let's do the right habits here. And hopefully that will build up his confidence. Because that's the other thing. His confidence is not going to be built up by this team. And that's part of Connor Ryan's next point. So maybe I'll just keep that on the shelf for now. But it's not going to get much better with Drake Maye at quarterback in terms of the wins and the losses. What you will see is hopefully some progress through it all. But Connor does bring out the stats. Here's the stat line of 5 quarterbacks who have matched up against the Texans so far this season. Anthony Richardson, basically a rookie, 9 for 19, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick. Caleb Williams, 23 for 37, only 174, 2 picks, sacked 7 times. Trevor Lawrence, 18 for 33 for only 169 and a couple touchdowns. Sam Darnold, 17 for 28, but only for 181. 4 touchdowns, 4 sacks. And Josh Allen, most recently, that debacle, 9 for 30 for 131 yards and just 1 touchdown. So obviously, this is a very good Texans defense. We knew that. But again, it's like if we just keep playing this game, we're gonna play it week after week after week because most teams are better than the Patriots. He also goes with the poor supporting cast, talking about the offensive line and talking about the receivers. He takes a quote from ESPN's Mike Reese. In their 1-4 start, the Patriots offensive line has produced a pass block win rate of 41.6%, last in the NFL. In-game statisticians recorded 49 hits against Brissett, although some of those came with Brissett holding on to the football too long or receivers struggling to get open. And since ESPN began tracking quarterback pressures in 2009, only the 2022 Bears, at 47.3%, have allowed a higher pressure rate through 5 games of a season than this year's Patriots, which is 1 percentage point behind. So, we know that the offensive line sucks. And to my point that I keep coming back to, it's not going to get any better. In fact, by the PFF numbers, Vidarian Lowe had a good game. Eyeball test. I don't think anybody had a good game for the Patriots offensive line this past week against Miami. But you're as healthy as you can be right now. David Andrews is not coming back. Sidy So is there. Vidarian Lowe is there. You've kind of got what you got. And so if your point is that you can't put him behind this offensive line, then he's not playing this season. And I don't think there's anybody around the Patriots that wants to say, yeah, that's okay. He just won't play this season. That's torture. That's stupid. That's completely brain dead. So that's not getting any better. Your wide receivers, They're not getting any better. In fact, this is as good as it gets with the fact that Kendrick Bourne is back on the roster and back active. And because of that, Tyquan Thornton will almost certainly be cut if you can't get anything for him in a trade, which I doubt that you will be able to. So, like, those things are not getting better. You're putting Drake Maye out there to see if he can work around that. You know, he is going to take hits, and it stinks that this offensive line is just this bad. But again, you tried it for 5 weeks. It didn't get any better. In fact, you got worse in terms of injuries. And this is what you've got. The bonus is, while your wide receivers aren't good, you've gotten Pop Douglas more involved the last few weeks. A quick slot receiver who can get open in a phone booth. Like, you get him some rhythm and get him some looks. That's going to be a guy who can help out Drake Maye tremendously. Hunter Henry has been arguably your best pass catcher of the year, which is mostly bad, but good in that you have a tight end that can get open for a young quarterback. And the way this Patriots offense would try to utilize that. And Jalen Polk has been getting some separation. And now you've got a guy who can get the ball down there in a hiccup. So your situation in terms of personnel is not getting any better. The only thing that you could really change was the quarterback, which you've gone and done. And the final point that Connor Ryan makes is it's an abrupt shift from whatever plan the Patriots had in place. The way I look at this, we don't know what the plan was, right? Because all they said was basically we'll play Drake when he's ready, when we feel he's ready to play. And through 5 weeks, that's a good sample size in practice. You had nothing at quarterback. You had nothing on offense anyway. So if they're saying, hey, we're going to put him out there against the Houston Texans, one of the best defenses in the league, then he's probably ready. So that to me, it's like, what is the plan? Gerard Mayo already said that Drake Maye outplayed the veteran Brissett in the preseason and in training camp. So what is the plan? So you say it's an abrupt shift from the plan. What is the plan? Nobody knows what the plan is. The plan, in a vague sense, was to play Drake Maye at some point. You've got to. He's the number 3 pick in the draft. And now you're playing him. I think this was a good wait period for the Patriots. 5 weeks. You're a third of the way through the season. He's had some game action. He got in the end of that game against the Jets. And you were going to need to start him at some point. Your offensive line's not getting any better. Your personnel in the receiving room is not getting any better. Your defense is actually getting worse. So it's kind of like, then what do you want to wait for, Connor? He doesn't provide a week that he would have rather seen him play. Because he just says, but now against this Texans team is when the Patriots believe Maye is ready to take over. There's no way that was part of any plan. Not at this stage of the season. What I don't know. How do you know? Patriots knew they weren't a good team coming into the season, and they knew they were going to have to play Drake Maye. It's not a shock to anybody that they're 1-4 at this point in the season, and now Drake Maye is starting. But now that's not a good enough time. When is the time? When do you start him? Is week 8 going to be better? Are they going to magically have an NFL receiver by week 8 or week 9? Are they magically going to have the 28th best offensive line in 3 weeks? No. So this to me is like, this feels like the perfect time almost. You're playing with house money. If you win more than 2 or 3 games, that's a successful season with this roster and this coaching staff. But you're not going to burn a year of this kid's rookie contract just because you suck. You already sucked. You know what I mean? You won 4 games last year. Everyone in the league knew you were going to suck. You knew you were going to suck. So why wait an extra couple weeks? That's what I don't get. And then you got a weird one next week in London, right? That's one of those London morning games. Zach, you want to provide any analysis on this Texans defense, on what they're going to do to my pal Drake Maye? Jacob Maye?
Well, I can tell you that they have found ways to win, but win ugly. But the defense has been really good at getting pressure. And with the Pats offensive line and the shape that it's in,
it's not good, right?
No, it's not
good. But it wasn't going to be any better.
No.
With Jacoby Brissett. At least you have some elusiveness there with Drake Maye. By the way, speaking of the Texans, CJ Stroud said that Drake Maye was the most NFL ready of the top 3 quarterbacks taken. I think he was the only one to have that opinion, but he did say that. He did say that.
Also,
and when I watched Jaden Daniels, I'm like, that guy's not NFL ready. Come on.
Well, he also apparently at least talks weekly with Jaden Daniels too. CJ seems to be the shepherd of these young QBs.
It's this new generation. He's the leader.
Yeah.
You thought it was going to be Bryce Young. I was trying to say Bryce Young and wrong in the same words. So that makes a ton of sense. You were wrong about that, although I'm not ready to give up.
I am very thankful for the Panthers in this situation because the Texans would have taken Bryce Young if they had the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, they would have. Did that come down to like the last week or two of the season? Like the Texans?
Yeah, it was
won
a win
game
over it was a late win over who was it? Was it the Titans? Was it the Colts? It was a division.
Because I have a lot of Houston.
I think it was the Colts, maybe.
I have a lot of Houston fans in my timeline on Twitter, and it was the year of the tank, and they just missed out on number 1 for Bryce Young.
Yeah,
and they missed out on the Wemby sweepstakes.
Yeah,
and so I was seeing like tankathons the whole time.
But then, give it a year and they're all thanking Lovie Smith for winning that one game to get CJ Stroud. So
unbelievable how these things work. We could be saying that about the Patriots. They kicked a game-winning field goal against Denver. They beat Pittsburgh Denver really needed to win. They beat Pittsburgh when Pittsburgh really needed to win. They had a game-winning drive against Buffalo last year. That's going to rear its ugly head. Potentially. I wanted Jaden Daniels. I'm on record from that since right after the draft, really, and before the draft on the Mosley show. I'm okay with Drake Maye. I think that's fine. I really like Jaden Daniels measurables coming out of college. You know me, quarterback scout, Cam. But I'm excited for this Drake Maye era to begin. And I find it so funny that it was basically a unison of fans and most media members being like, can the Drake Maye thing be any worse than what we're seeing on the field right now? And now it's like, oh, this isn't the time. We've been begging for you for months to start Drake Maye, but not this way. This isn't the way we want it. Again, I just don't know. We're not in the Brady era anymore. Like, to be quite honest with you, it's the second week in October, and these games no longer matter. You're punting the season anyway. What you don't want to punt is the first season of Drake Maye's career. A quarterback on a rookie contract, starting quarterback on a rookie contract, is the most valuable thing in the National Football League. You don't just burn it because you failed to build a team around him for 3 years. That's why you were picking number 3. Like, that's what you're doing this for. And it's not every year that a team picks a quarterback at the top of the draft and actually has a respectable team around them the way that Caleb Williams does with the Bears. And look how that's turned out. He's been okay. Not great. More likely, you get a situation like Jaden Daniels, who has an okay team around him, not as good as the Bears, and he's lighting it up. And a similar situation with the Panthers with Bryce Young, but he sucks. It comes down to the quarterback and whoever's coaching that quarterback at the end of the day. Like, you're not going to pick a quarterback in the top 3 and expect to just have this great situation for him to walk into. And yeah, the Patriots might be the worst team in the whole NFL. But it's to that point, it doesn't really matter who you're going up against. Miami, bad team, terrible offense, have no idea what they're doing at quarterback. They can rush the passer, though. So was that a better alternative to putting him out there? He's going to get hit either way. They're that bad. I'm excited for it. I'm really excited for it. It finally gives us something to watch for. Because my God, I have been watching Baylor and the Patriots back-to-back days like this whole season. Oh, if I keep doing it, I might get cancer. Like, if I keep having to watch that shit over and over and over again. And I have to watch every snap. I do post-game shows for both. I got to take notes. I got to watch every snap. Oh, I got to provide some hope. You know how tough that is, Zach? Well, you're a Texans fan. Most years you do understand.
I totally get it.
Oh, but Drake Maye, he is back. We have a special guest coming back to the show to talk Luis Tiant and why he should be in the Hall of Fame. That's coming up next on the Cam Show, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network. Sports. We're back. And the big guest from last week is back. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. It's my dad, Bill Stuart, otherwise known as the Billdozer, our retro sports expert, is coming in to talk some Luis Tiant. Dad, before I get there, I have to ask you this. Is the word inimitable? INIMITABLE?
Inimitable. Yeah.
Should that word be in a headline?
No reason why not.
Well, I mean, I'm not. I know I'm not the brightest knife in the chandelier, but I do have a college degree. I don't know what that word is.
Well, the idea is that now you're supposed to look it up.
I mean, John Powers should be retired. He shouldn't be having me look stuff up in a dictionary. The inimitable ace of the 75 AL champion Red Sox. Would you agree with that for Luis Tiant?
Absolutely. But, before
what does the word mean? What does the word mean?
Inimitable means that nobody can imitate him.
Okay.
No one else like him.
I thought that. Then that makes sense. It like unimitatable. Is how I would have said it at Rockland High anyway.
Hey, before we get to Louis,
one
comment on your last segment there. We're talking about Drake Maye and what the plan was. Who the hell knows what the plan was? But as you were talking about it, I kept thinking about Mike Tyson's classic line. Everybody's got a plan until they're punched in the face. Yep. When you're 1-4 and you see the ceiling of an Alex Van Pelt offense with Jacoby Brissett is 13 points, you've been punched in the face again and again, and you got to do something. Whether your plan was game 10 or game 15 or game 6, it doesn't matter. What you got's not working. You're losing the fans. It's a lot easier fix than Baylor's fix. Baylor, I don't know what the heck you're going to do to make that better, but at least you've got somebody in the closet with the Patriots that can come in and people are going to be watching again because they want to see what this kid can do.
Speaking of in the closet with the Patriots, have you seen any of this Hernandez thing? This Hernandez show?
No.
I haven't asked you about it. It's interesting. Oh, it's interesting. There is a clip. I should have sent you that. I should have had this clip for the show, Zach. I sent it to Zach this morning. It's the guy playing Belichick is just like blaring Bon Jovi in his office. And they cut to like the secretary outside. She kind of shakes her head. And I had this idea of like, I love that in being Bill Belichick's secretary, the worst problem you have is that he plays Bon Jovi a little bit too loud. It is, it's not good. It's not a good show. Not a good show at all. But let's talk Luis Tiant.
Yeah.
I opened with it yesterday, Dad. I didn't want to sound like a broken record, but a hero of the 1975 World Series has died at age 83 and unfortunately will not be able to see himself go into the Hall of Fame, although he deserves to be. And I'm not sounding like a broken record. This time it's for a much more sympathetic character in Luis Tiant. And this is something that many, but you and I have talked about for years, that Luis should be in the Hall of Fame. His career gets overlooked, and a lot of it comes down to counting stats. So Pete asked me this question yesterday after I went on a whole rant on why Luis Tiant should be in the Hall of Fame. And he said, so why isn't Luis Tiant in the Hall of Fame? You lived through it. Why is Luis Tiant not in the Hall of Fame already?
Luis Tiant's not in the Hall of Fame because he just didn't do it long enough.
19 years.
Yeah, but he had injuries in there. He had a great middle of his career. He had a great beginning. I mean, 1968, he took advantage of the lowered mound and he led the league in ERA.
Mm-hmm. Bad teams there in Cleveland. Then he got traded. Then he hurt his arm. Then he made the comeback. I mean, with the Red Sox from 72 to 76, 77, he pitched some of the best baseball that we'd seen in Boston. And then after that, it was a pretty middling career. So, the injuries, changing his style. And you look at his win totals, and outside of 3 or 4 years in Boston, he was a 12 or 13 game winner. And I always say, and you know this, my bias is always, I'm going to Baseball Reference and looking at the comparables. And hey, starts out really well. Comparables, Catfish Hunter. Yep.
Great. Hall of Famer.
We went through this yesterday, actually. I'm trying to pull it up now.
Yeah, then after that, you get Jim Bunning, Billy Beer,
Lolich, Trisdale.
Perry. So, yeah, I mean, some guys who, at number 10, Oral Hershiser.
Yeah, but Kevin Brown in there, too.
Guys who were some of them are in the Hall of Fame, but with the exception of Catfish, borderline Hall of Famers at best. So, he falls into that. And you and I have had this discussion for 15 years back and forth of the Hall of Fame versus the Hall of Very Good. And which side does Dwight Evans fall into? And which side does Jim Rice fall into? And Louis is one of those guys, Kurt Schilling. Another one. I think Schilling's probably more deserving because of his great postseason record. But Louis not going to get there. He's not going to get there because it just... He's on the wrong side, I think, of that dividing line. Although, in fairness to him, as always, there are less accomplished guys who are in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Mean that he should be in there, means they should be removed, but there's no process for impeaching and convicting a Hall of Fame member.
I want to put this head-to-head to you between Tiant and Catfish Hunter, because Catfish is known as, one of the dominant starters of the 70s. But when you look at the numbers, all right, Luis Tiant, 229 and 172 for his career. Catfish, 224 and 166.
Yeah.
So we talk about counting stats. That's the same right there. Innings pitched, a few more to Louis, and a few more games started. In fact, 8 more games started for Luis Tiant. So a similar style career. Louis had more saves, 15 saves. The WAR, I know we didn't have it back then, but Catfish, his WAR is 41 for his career. Luis Tiant is 66, 25 wins better above replacement than Catfish Hunter. His ERA plus is 10 points higher. Again, another stat you didn't have back then. 400 more strikeouts, better strikeout percentage. Catfish had a better walk percentage. But then you look at that awards and honors part of it. Hall of Fame, Catfish, check. Championships, 5. All-Star, 8. Cy Young, 1. ERA title, 1. Luis Tiant, 3 All-Star teams. Looking back at the numbers, it probably should have been a little bit more. And 2 ERA titles. No championships, no Cy Young. It feels like, obviously, we know a big part of the Hall of Fame is a popularity contest when it comes down to it. And the other thing I think is fascinating is when we're going to be looking at, we think Luis Tiant should be in the Hall of Fame now. Again, not a runaway, but I think he should be in the Hall of Fame now. When we look back at this 15, 20 years from now, the way we're going to have to look at pitchers for their Hall of Fame cases, people are going to be saying, my God, how did this guy not get in? Because when we're looking at counting stats, we're taking away 300 wins. We're taking away 3,000 strikeouts. Guys aren't going to be hitting those numbers anymore. So do you think to that end, in 15, 20 years, there is going to be more momentum, maybe not momentum, but more people looking at Luis Tiant's stats and saying, how did this guy not get in?
Yeah, I think there'll be more of that because you're right, with 5-man rotations and pitch counts and all, we're not going to see guys like Louis pitching 270, 300 innings the way they were. Mm-hmm. But so I think the numbers, the expectation of numbers will be lowered for the Hall of Fame. By the same token, the argument's going to be that Louis competed in that era where everybody did throw 300. The best ones did throw 300 innings a year. So where are the victories? I think that's going to be. I think you hit on the big thing. The number of championships, the number of times that he was on national TV in October. And this gets to, who's a better all-time kicker, Vinatieri or the Ravens guy, Tucker?
Yep.
Tucker. Who's a better kicker? Tucker's probably a better kicker, but Vinatieri had so many clutch kicks when everybody was watching because it was the only game on TV. Mm-hmm. It was the playoffs, and both those guys incidentally are Hall of Famers. But I mean, just that idea that you're seeing guys winning championships, that's so important when it gets down to subjective voting for a Hall of Fame.
All right, let's talk El Tiante then. By the way, I mean, his numbers are fairly similar to John Lester's, by the way, for Red Sox fans out there. And Lester is someone I think we can all agree on. Pretty damn good career, not a Hall of Famer. I was trying to see if he was closer to Lester or Greinke, and he's a little bit closer to Lester. Anyway, let's talk about Luis Tiant, the guy, because we talked last about Pete Rose, and there's a lot that comes with Pete Rose. Not the nicest guy in the world. And Luis Tiant has the Hall of Fame case without the Hall of Fame campaign, without the betting on baseball, without the statutory rape charges. None of that package comes with Luis Tiant. And we've met him. I think met him a couple of times. because he would sit outside Fenway, outside the Tiante grill or whatever it was, and sign pictures and take pictures and tell stories. What were your interactions? I think you went up and asked him about that game where he threw whatever, like 180 pitches.
Yeah, it was funny. You and I went to that game, and yeah, he would always sit outside his El Tiante Cuban sandwich shack there. And yeah, very great interacting with the fans. So I remember the time you and I went up, it was, I think, 1974. Red Sox had a very good team that year. And he lost the game. I think he lost the game 3-2. He pitched into the 16th inning. It was a complete game, like 15 and a third, 15 and 2/3 innings.
Oh, God.
And he loses the game. And I mentioned it to him, and I'm giving him the details that I remember. And apparently it made an impression on Louis too, because he corrected me on a couple of things. It was like 15 and 2/3 versus 15 and a third or something like that.
Years later.
Yeah. But I mean, when Luis Tiant pitched, number one, there was an atmosphere around Fenway, and you went to, I think, one Pedro game.
Mm-hmm.
Pedro started, and you saw all the Dominican flags and the Dominicans outside the ballpark, inside the ballpark. There was just, the place was electric. It was the same thing with Louis, and the difference was with Pedro, it's just because he had outstanding stuff. He was a great pitcher with outstanding stuff. Louis, it was because he was a great pitcher during that era with stuff that he created on his own out of nowhere because he didn't have the arm. Mm-hmm. But he also, like Pedro, just had that engaging personality.
It was a show.
Yeah, unlike a Pete Rose,
mm-hmm.
Louis was he put on a show on the mound. He was accommodating to the press. He was accommodating to the fans. He was just an incredibly likable guy. That's what you loved about him. It's not just he was an underdog because he'd shredded his arm and he could never throw 90 miles an hour after his first injury, long before he came to the Red Sox. It's just this everyman who made something out of nothing and was just glad to be out there, glad to be living every day.
Yeah.
That was just his persona. And fans just loved him. And you saw some of that even well into his retirement, that when he would come back to Fenway, when he would be the featured alum at the game, and Fred Lynn did that about 79 games a year, but the other two, it was Fisk or Louis. And they would pan on Louis in about the fourth inning, the camera, and people just give him a standing ovation. They just remember how great he was on some really great Red Sox teams.
And there was always a line at El Tiante, by the way. Always a line around his stool.
There was. I mean, I couldn't care less about Cuban sandwiches, but I wanted to talk to Louis, and I kind of felt obligated to have a Cuban sandwich afterwards.
Yeah. And speaking of all that, you said he made something out of nothing, and he really did that twice. I mean, he grew up in early Castro, Cuba. In fact, he would have been there when it became Castro's Cuba. And so he has to then abandon his life to come play baseball and then make something out of nothing again with the arm injury. And last time we had you on, we talked 75 World Series, probably the peak of Louis' career in terms of the moment. Yep. And that game at Fenway where his dad was there. You talked a little bit about it. Tell me what that game was like when, they keep flashing to his dad, who's the thumbs up as he's striking out some of the best hitters of the generation. It must have been like a really big time memorable day.
Yeah, it was emotional. It's not like today where, God, every time, this guy's making his major league debut, and every time he throws a strike, they're panning to his parents. Yeah. Who cares? That's nice story. But with Louis, I mean, he had left his parents, 15 years before in Cuba. His dad had been a great baseball player in Cuba. Louis followed. One of those stories like Orlando Cepeda being the great son of a Puerto Rican player. So he had that legacy, and then he has to leave suddenly. His parents can't get out. A lot of diplomatic efforts before the 75 World Series to try to get his...
And by the way, that makes a big deal that the parents can't get out, because then they're still living in Cuba and everyone knows their son is defected. That's also not an easy part of this. But yeah, they efforted it before the World Series.
And then the parents come, and it's just, I mean, it brought people to tears. It was a really great human interest story that these parents, for the first time, get to see their son, the all-star, the major leaguer, the World Series player, playing on the biggest stage. It was emotional for everybody.
And I do think it's kind of a crime to his career too, with how much we value postseason stats for a pitcher. You mentioned Curt Schilling, and he should be getting in almost off that alone. And those 70s Red Sox specifically would have done, I think, really well to have the expanded playoffs that you see today, to have a division series. 72, they make the championship series, if I'm not mistaken. And then 74, they kind of fall out of it the last month. 75, they go to the World Series. 78, they obviously blow it big time. But each of those would have been playoff teams. And then we get 8 more Luis Tiant playoff starts. Do you think that would have helped them?
Oh, absolutely. I got to correct you on one thing. 72, They lost by half a game.
They
lost to the Tigers. That was the strike shortened season, and one of the teams played one fewer game than the other. So they missed out. They were in Detroit for the last 3 games of the season. Whoever won 2 would win, and the Tigers won the first 2. But yeah, so the expanded playoffs, I mean, those 70s Red Sox teams would have been in 72, 74, 75, 77, 78. Louis would have seen a lot of postseason action, and things would have been very different. Suddenly you would have seen 15, 18 starts versus the one he had in the playoffs in 75, because they swept Oakland in then 3 games in the best of 5, and then the 7-game World Series. So 3 total starts didn't do him justice. He did great in all 3 of them, but if he'd had another dozen of those, people might have been thinking very differently about Louis when he came up for the Hall of Fame originally.
Yeah, and I don't know if this needs to be part of his Hall of Fame case. I don't want to make him out to be Jackie Robinson or anything, but there weren't a lot of Cubans in the league at that time. We were still barely letting the Puerto Ricans come and play baseball. Ask Roberto Clemente how tough it was. You know what I mean? And so now, what is obviously one of the richest baseball nations in the world, Luis Tiant is kind of a trailblazer there in a lot of ways. It doesn't get remembered.
That's true. That's true. He was. Yeah.
So
and unlike some of the other guys, he learned English pretty quickly.
Yes.
He wasn't relying on an interpreter. It was a broken English, but it was pretty good. And when he made a mistake, he realized that he was the first one to laugh at it. But Louis assimilated.
That was great for the fans. That was really great for the fans and the writers.
It's great for the fans. But I got to tell you one thing. I'm amused at these stories. Luis Tiant died at 83, because who knows how old he was. Gene Michael, who was utility infielder in the 60s and later was in the front office of the Yankees, always said when Louis started making it big, he said, I was in the minors with Louis. He was 4 years older than I was then. Now he's 4 years younger. So we really don't know how old Louis was, and he never let on. And obviously there was no Cuban registry of births to find out. So Louis was somewhere probably in his 80s, may have been closer to the high end than the low end, but. And so, that was another piece of his charm. We didn't know, wow, a guy's still performing this well at age 33. Well, maybe he's 37. Yeah.
A trailblazer for Fausto Carmona, or what his real name was.
There you go.
Before I get you out of here, the Bruins are on pace to give up 500 goals this year. Do you think that's going to happen?
Well, I would have said that before they signed Swayman, but
Swayman, man, he should have just held off another couple of days, not even weeks, man. They would have given him $20 million after that. Good Lord. And it was not a good performance by anybody, to be fair, but it was not good goaltending.
And in retrospect, they might as well have started him with absolutely no experience in the preseason.
Yeah,
he couldn't have done any worse.
He was practicing with BU apparently for a couple of weeks, and I was saying how Hockey East fans of the 90s would have been shaking their fist. Those were some pretty good teams and good rivals, Jack Parker and Sean Walsh. Dad, thanks for coming on. We're going to have you when Phil Esposito dies, I'm sure, or Dave Cowens or something. Right. Can I, before I let you go,
yeah.
Pete and I did this yesterday. And I want you to get the wheels turning on this because I think you'll really like it. I meant to text you about it. So on Barstool, they did which college has the best big three. And what they meant by that was the best professional in the three major ones: football, basketball, baseball, men's basketball. So my pick was one of your alma maters, unfortunately. To have Earl Campbell, Kevin Durant, and Roger Clemens is pretty good. But Florida State is what made me think of that because they're not that bad. You throw in Dion, Dave Cowens, and someone like Buster Posey.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty good. I want you to be thinking about that for the next time we talk.
Yeah, the other one, North Carolina, can probably do pretty well with their baseball players and a pretty good linebacker in the 80s for the Giants and some good basketball players.
But think about it though. Who's the baseball guy? Like Daniel Bard might be the best baseball guy.
Yeah, it's not Andrew Miller.
It's right. It's a good history. They're always a good program, but it's the players. It's same thing with Florida. Can't think of a Florida baseball player. You can get Emmitt Smith and I don't know, someone like Al Horford or Joakim Noah, not a Hall of Famer, but a pretty good player for a long time. It's tough. I think the best dark horses we had were San Diego State.
Yeah.
Marshall Faulk, Kawhi Leonard, Tony Gwynn. That's pretty incredible. And a Big 12 school who has the second best tight end probably ever, plus Oscar Robertson, plus Sandy Koufax. Kevin Euclid on the bench for Cincinnati. Yeah. Oh, man. That's a pretty good one.
The other one, don't sleep on Miami.
I did sleep on Miami because I don't know a baseball player.
All right. There's got to be one. I mean, Rick Barry in basketball.
Yep. And take your pick in football.
Football, take your pick.
Vince Wilson,
baseball, there's got to be a good one with all those College World Series teams they had. I mean, I can't think of him off the top of my head, but there's got to be somebody.
Alex Cora. That might be it.
Okay.
Dad, thanks
Scratch that.
Thanks for bringing Luis Tiant back to life for us. And hopefully, I know we don't need to get into this because it'll take too long, but we both don't like the Veterans Committee and think it needs to be done away with. If they're going to stick around, though, this is one they should take a look at. That's all I'm saying. But that's our man, our retro sports expert, our Luis Tiant expert, Bill Stuart. Do you want to be the Billdozer on the show? You put that as your name in there on the StreamYard.
You promote me however you want.
The Dozer. Thanks for coming on, Dad. We really appreciate it. We're going to have Pete Souza next, so I'm sure you'll stick around to watch it on YouTube. But Pete Souza next, we'll be talking about all kinds of stuff. And by that, I mean we'll figure it out in the break. That's coming up next on The Cam Show, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network. I'm saying it goes. All right, we did get some. We got a message into the show. Message into the show on behalf of the Miami Hurricanes. Romy Gonzalez, Red Sox great. Alex Fernandez and Ryan Braun. Ryan Braun MVP.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
Ryan Braun's the one we missed yesterday.
Kind of a douchebag, but
he's a liar.
Dick, but yeah,
like the FedEx
like
guy
kind of not a good
fall.
person.
Yeah.
And like ruined that guy's life, and then just invited him over to dinner.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, he like invited him over like a year later. Sorry about that, man. Sorry, I said that you compromised my sample.
If I was Braun, I would go on record like I gave the guy $1 million. Like that's how I feel like those punitive damages. That's what it was worth. You know,
it still doesn't make Miami's big three the best in Florida.
No.
If Braun had kept playing at the he would have been better than Buster Posey. But
yeah,
it's the way the cookie crumbles, brother.
You should have seen Rob Kraft last night on Hernandez.
Dude, I didn't watch this episode. I sent the Belichick Bon Jovi clip to Zach this morning. Holy shit. Like, come on, man. All right. So Belichick is a Bon Jovi fan. Bon Jovi would come to the games. He'd come to practices. But that is so ridiculous, man.
He puts on the CD player.
He's like, the CD player. It's like 2013. He's doing like the pencil tap. It's my life.
And I appreciate that, like, they're thinking, okay, he's Bill Belichick, so he's got a CD player, right? That's the idea.
Sure.
But come on, man. That was, at this point now, you're just venturing into, I'm watching this because it's funny.
Yeah, it's Fantasyland. Like, dude, I kind of noticed this episode 1, but it's so funny that, like, the guy who plays Aaron Hernandez is, like, my height.
Yeah.
And, like, 200 pounds. He's, like, pudgy. And
he's not as handsome
like
as he's not as handsome as Aaron Hernandez.
No, when Aaron Hernandez is like 6'5", he's completely ripped. You know what I mean?
Hernandez had the Riz, dude. This guy does not have the Riz.
Kind of did. Are they trying to play it off that he doesn't have the Riz? No Riz with women, just with guys. Like we opened. What did we open with? Oh, he was saying Dad was talking about Drake Maye, the first thing before we talked about Luis Tiant, and he's like, when you got another guy, if you're the Patriots, you got a guy like that in the closet, why not just go out and use him? And I said, speaking of Patriots in the closet, have you watched any of this? He hasn't seen it.
The funny thing about how they play,
he's not as critical as I am on TV.
How they play in on his the homosexuality is like if his buddy is coming to town who he like hooks up with, like the guy, he's always like so excited. Like if he gets a phone, yeah, man, I'll meet you wherever. Like, come on over here. Like they're very clearly saying he's in love with this man. And then this hot, beautiful woman is like, hey, like Aaron, like she's trying to help him.
The one from Bristol?
Yeah.
Okay, the one he actually was engaged
to.
Yeah.
Life. She's trying to get his life squared away. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay.
Hotter.
Huh?
Actress is way hotter, by the way, than her.
They're both very pretty. I can't believe they got the gap tooth down. I mean, that was either totally random or CGI. Either way, thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, but that's the thing is it's like so cartoonish what you point out with like how excited he is around the guy. And that's happened in a couple episodes. And like he's just doesn't like they try to make it out as if like he doesn't like anybody else.
Yeah.
And that he's only a human when he's around this lover.
I kind of appreciate the guy who's playing Bill Belichick because
the guy from
he was in something else?
Yeah, he's from Bloodline.
Oh, really? So I
you
never
watched that show?
No, I've never watched it.
It's not bad.
He's a pretty good actor. Like he's doing his best, and he does a pretty good Bill Belichick.
I said that with the draft scene. I'm like, he's trying.
Yeah, no, it's not his fault that they're giving him.
Yeah,
crazy
it's
scenario.
stupid, but
the guy's got to make chicken salad, dance around a Bon Jovi.
Belichick almost shouldn't even be a character in this.
Well, there's a lot of people.
The point that he is a character means that they are going to pin it on him somehow.
They got one guy right, at least so far. It's Tom Brady. Here's an example. They're at Bob Kraft's party. They walk by Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And you see this really like tall, handsome guy, but you really can't make him out. And they walk by and Aaron's wife or fiance or whatever is like, oh my God, that's Giselle. And they just keep walking. Like that's how you play it for most everybody that people know. I would think.
Yes.
And it goes over pretty well.
Shadowy figures rather than
Yes.
Let's make these characters.
Belichick has him sit. Oh my gosh. You got to see for yourself.
I guess I do. I'm so ready to give up on this. If Kirk Minahan wasn't a character in the 10th episode,
he is?
The last episode is. Yeah. That's what got me turned on to this. So he was, so this whole theory on the show is that it's going to be Kirk Minahan going to come in as like the classic Boston shock jock. Oh, how about those Pats, huh? They fucking lost again. There's that Hernandez guy, huh? What is he, a queer? Like they're just going to pull some shit like that. And they think that they're going to make Kirk out to be a killer in some way.
Oh, so somebody
that his sports talk pressured Aaron Hernandez.
So is he really? He's not in it. It's somebody.
No,
based
there's
on
a
him.
character playing him,
Wow.
Kirk Minahan.
Nice.
But it's the last episode. Is there 10? Is there supposed to be 10?
Jesus, I don't know.
That seems like way too much.
I thought there's only 8.
Even that would seem like too much.
Yeah.
But you're probably right. Let's see.
I saw 8
Aaron
or even 6. I think. But yeah,
6 would seem right. It's still gone. It could have been like 3.
Yeah, last night was again. There was some fun football stuff. They totally skipped one thing, like a nitpick is he was wearing 85 in one game, and then they switched him to 81. Like it was like
he wore 85 his rookie year.
Yeah, and Ocho Cinco he
came in the second year.
Yeah, and he says he gave it to Ocho Cinco. There's reports that he sold it to Ocho Cinco for $75,000.
10
episodes. Wow.
10 episodes.
That's great.
So what was this? 5?
Bring
4?
him on. Yeah, 5. I'm bring him on.
And we're already into year 2 of his NFL career. He only had 3.
But they skipped it. They didn't ever give a natural break. Like they just one game he's wearing 85.
But they're in this. They're in the second year.
They have to be. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And they're halfway done.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's gonna be a scene where my friend and his dad get rear-ended by him on Route 1. I think that could make it out somewhere. You know.
Hey, what about? I wanted to ask you. What about Drake Maye? What like are you?
What about him?
Are you pissed about this?
Someone is watching for Drake Maye.
I saw Bill Simmons. He's doing this typical Bill Simmons. He's walking around New York City. He's like, I did this also for my YouTube, so I'm double dipping. Drake Maye. Why are the Patriots going to start him? Like, what's that all about? They could have started him last week against Miami.
And Jacoby Brissett is like a top, I don't know, 16 quarterback in the last 3 years.
And by the way,
just some arbitrary stat.
He used to like Brissett. He used to kind of like, but he's turned on him big time. And he's like, I just want to let Jets fans know there's somebody else out there who's got it just as bad as they do.
I don't listen to any Simmons football, anything but basketball.
I used to listen to Simmons all the time. I listen to the rewatchables. And that's about it. And him and cousin Sal too. They're pretty good together.
I'm into the Drake Maye thing.
Huh?
I think it's time for Drake Maye. I think it's time.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah. In fact, and a bunch of Patriots fans are now saying, "Oh, why didn't you do it last week when they played that shit Miami team?" And it was like, because if they lost that Miami team and Drake Maye threw 2 picks, you'd be like, "Oh my God, why didn't they just play the steady Eddie guy and get a win when there's a win on their schedule?" So I think this is like the perfect time. They're going up against a really good defense that's sack happy, but his offensive line is not getting any better. His weapons are not getting any better. And so if you don't do it soon, then you're just taking weeks of progress away. You know what I mean? You're taking game reps away at this point because you're punting the season and you're not going to redshirt him the whole year. So it's kind of, I don't want to say now or never, but it's like, it's time. Let's see what they got. And by the way, I don't expect the Patriots to be much better at all these next few weeks.
Okay.
I think it's still going to be pretty bad, but I think there's going to be some plays that Drake Maye makes that we're going to be like, okay, there's some hope here, and he'll get better. And he'll progress throughout the season. It's kind of like, I know you love bringing up Baylor. My dad brought up Baylor. I don't like talking about Baylor on the show, but I'll bring it up for this sake.
We didn't have to. We didn't mention him once on the Big 12 show this morning because they have a bye
sounds about right. They are on a bye week, but that also sounds about right.
Yeah.
And I said it because they were so bad last year. They were 3-9. Baylor was, and they didn't really show any progress in the last month or so of the season, and so the progress that you're seeing now of like, oh, they're showing more effort, they're better execution on this and that, they got a better quarterback situation, like all of that should have been progressing at the end of last year. And instead, it waited until this year, and you've essentially ruined 2 seasons instead of 1. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Like they should have started at a higher ceiling or a higher floor than they did.
Why did they?
And so that's kind of the same. I just wanted to say that to say like that's what you'd be dealing with the Patriots if you just continue to not have Drake Maye out there.
So to kind of put a bow on it, what made Baylor the team it was in 2021? Like, did Dave Aranda have any hand in that as far as you're concerned? I believe he did. I believe he was the right leader at the right time.
There are some people who will say, nope, he just failed bass backwards into it. But I don't think that's true. Now, you look at the personnel, it's Matt Rule's players. And Dave Aranda came in, and I think he was the right guy at the right time because Matt Rule's players, he did a great job recruiting and developing them, never beat a ranked team. They beat 5 ranked teams in 2021. And so they needed someone else to get them over the top. And an interesting point on this, we had Christoph Henley on the Drake Tull show last year, who was talking about the difference in practices with Matt Rule and Dave Aranda. And he basically had thrown out there that with Aranda, only the ones were getting reps like you would at an NFL practice. And, that's why when you see them have to go deep and they don't have any depth, that's why, because they're not getting any reps in practice and you just throw them out there in a game. And so that makes a ton of sense when you look at Matt Rule's guys were there. They had played a lot of football. Okay. They didn't need to learn a bunch of things. They needed to learn like the intangibles to win, that last thing. It's not teaching the game, but rather the technique that you would get in the NFL and little tweaks week to week. Dave Aranda is probably great at that. Right. And that's probably why he was such a great coordinator, not as great a head coach. And so you see that, that makes a ton of sense. You got guys who played a lot of football. They didn't need a lot of help. They just needed a little bit more to get over that hump. And they did. By the way, the Bill Dozer's really into the big 3 thing. He's sent me like 5.
Can you give me 1 or 2 of the best ones?
Yes. Yeah. So he likes UCLA. Same one that you and I picked for those 3.
Yeah, that's the best.
Oh my God, dude. He's given me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
All right, give me
since he's got off the air. Miami baseball, he gave the Ryan Braun one. Arizona, which Zach brought up after the show yesterday. Trevor Hoffman, Gronk, and then pick a basketball player. I think we said Jason Terry is probably the best.
Jason Terry?
I know. It's
weird. I'd take Richard Jefferson over Jason Terry.
Would you?
The Jet on the runway? I'd take Damon Stoudemire.
For a career?
Jason Terry sucked. He was good on a championship team. The Jet.
Jason Terry was a pretty good role player for a long time.
Pretty good. I'm talking about, I just named starters.
Richard Jefferson?
I would take Gilbert Arenas.
After year 4 or 5, Richard Jefferson?
Richard Jefferson had a really productive.
I might take Gilbert Arenas over Richard Jefferson.
That's a better pick.
Gil Arenas is a good one. Gil Arenas is a really good one.
All right. Arizona State, Reggie Jackson, Mike Haynes, football. I forgot
Mike
about
Haynes.
Mike Haynes. That's a really good one. James Harden for basketball.
Mike Haynes and Lester Hayes at both corners.
That's a really good big 3 right there.
I didn't say Mike Hamilton. I said Mike Haynes. Why is this guy in here?
He picked Duke, his alma mater. Dick Groat for baseball. You've probably never heard of. He won an MVP with the Pirates. Sonny Jurgensen, Hall of Famer in football. And then he said pick a men's basketball player, which would probably be Kyrie, actually. Yeah. Grant Hill. Grant Hill's in the Hall of Fame. Should have had a better career, but for the injuries. USC, he gave me 3 baseball players, 2 football players, and 2 basketball players. I'm going to go with Tom Seaver over Randy Johnson, barely. OJ is his best pick for football, and DeMar DeRozan for basketball. And then he did Michigan, which we had said.
Go
Brady,
back to USC
Chris
for a
Webber,
second.
Barry Larkin. USC, which one do you want?
So give me those 2 more.
Tom Seaver is what I picked, but you could have picked Randy Johnson or Mark McGuire. OJ and Lynn Swan were his 2. He had Lynn for baseball, Fred Lynn. OJ was his only football player.
That's great.
Bill Sharman and DeMar DeRozan. OJ might have been the best player. Best pro.
There's no question.
Hall of Fame, 2,000 yards in a 14-game season. Anyway, we got to wrap it up. Okay. Think about that. Think about some more. I want you to think maybe Richmond's big 3. I'd like that. Richmond and Villanova.
Brian Jordan is both football and baseball.
Yeah, I know.
Boom. There you go.
That doesn't count. Pete Souza, he'll have his own show at 1 o'clock. I'll be on there probably at some point, depending on how long Mosley keeps me. 11 a.m. Central Time every weekday, high noon on the East Coast, right here on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you at that time tomorrow.